I took the job because I needed the money and because nobody else wanted it. The ranger station sat 47 miles from the nearest town, accessible only by a logging road that turned to mud every spring and froze solid every winter. The pay was decent for what amounted to 6 months of isolation, and the work seemed straightforward enough. Monitor fire conditions, maintain trail markers, respond to emergencies, file weather reports twice daily. The previous ranger had left mid-season without explanation, which should have told me something, but my student loans didn't care about red flags. I arrived on a Tuesday in late September. The leaves were just starting to turn, patches of yellow and orange spreading through the green like a slow infection. My supervisor, a man named Hutchins, who looked about 60 and moved like 70, met me at the trailhead with a Park Service truck and a manila folder thick enough to be a novel. "You Keeper?" he asked. "Sarah Keeper, yes." He nodded once and handed me the folder. "Everything's in here. Radio codes, emergency contacts, maintenance schedule, trail maps. Station's got propane heat, well water, solar panels with a diesel backup. You'll do a supply run every 2 weeks on Thursdays, weather permitting. Any questions before we head up?" The previous ranger quit. Hutchins climbed into the truck. Left his notes. You'll want to read those. The road up took 40 minutes of careful driving. Hutchins didn't talk much, just pointed out landmarks when we passed them. The old fire tower 3 miles east, the Ridge Trail Junction, the creek crossing that flooded in heavy rain. The station itself was a single-story structure built from local stone and timber, probably 60 years old, with a covered porch facing west and a small outbuilding for equipment storage. "Generators in the shed," Hutchins said, unlocking the front door. "You'll run it twice a week to keep it fresh, Tuesdays and Fridays, between 10 and 11 a.m. Radios on the desk, Channel 6 for dispatch, Channel 9 for maintenance. Weather station's automated, but you'll verify readings at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. daily." The interior was Spartan. Main room with a desk, radio equipment, and detailed topographic maps covering one wall. Small kitchen with a propane stove and refrigerator. Bedroom barely large enough for a twin bed and dresser. Bathroom with a composting toilet and gravity-fed shower. Everything was clean but worn, the kind of place that had seen decades of use and minimal upgrades. Hutchins walked me through the basics: water filtration, solar panel maintenance, fire suppression equipment inventory. Then he pulled a laminated sheet from his jacket pocket and set it on the desk. "These are the operational protocols. Previous ranger added some amendments based on his experience. You follow these exactly." "Okay." Not okay. Exactly. Word for word, minute for minute. This isn't a suggestion list. I picked up the sheet. It was covered in tight, handwritten text numbered 1 through 14. "Some of this seems—" "Exactly," Hutchins repeated. "I've been with the Park Service 32 years, lost 2 rangers in that time. Both thought they knew better." He moved toward the door. "Supply truck comes every other Thursday at 2 p.m. You'll radio dispatch every morning at 7 a.m. and every evening at 8 p.m., no exceptions. If you miss 2 check-ins, we come up. If the road's impassable, we bring a helicopter. Understood?" "Understood." "Good. You've got my number for emergencies, but radio first always. Cell service is non-existent up here." He paused in the doorway. "Read the protocols tonight, all of them. Then read the previous ranger's logbook. It's in the desk's bottom drawer." He left. I watched the truck disappear down the logging road until the sound of the engine faded completely, replaced by wind through pines and the distant call of a crow. I made coffee and sat down to read the protocols. Operational protocols, Appalachian Ranger Station 7. 1. Radio check-ins occur at exactly 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. daily. Use only Channel 6. If dispatch does not respond within 90 seconds, switch to Channel 9 and wait 3 minutes. If no response on channel 9, return to channel 6 and repeat your call sign and station number 3 times, then wait until the next scheduled check-in. Do not attempt contact between scheduled times except for emergencies. 2. The generator runs Tuesdays and Fridays between 10 and 11 a.m. only. Do not run it at any other time. If the generator fails during a scheduled run, note the failure time precisely and report it at the next radio check-in. Do not attempt to repair it outside of scheduled run times. 3. After sunset, keep all curtains closed until sunrise. The front window curtain remains open during daylight hours. The bedroom window curtain stays closed at all times. 4. If you hear your name called from outside the station after dark, do not respond and do not go to the window. If you hear your name called 3 times in succession, go to the bathroom, close the door, and wait for 15 minutes by your watch before emerging. 5. The equipment shed is locked at all times. The key remains on the desk during the day and in your pocket at night. If you find the shed unlocked when you know you locked it, do not enter. Lock it again from the outside and note the time. Check the lock again in exactly 1 hour. If it remains locked, proceed normally. 6. Trail maintenance occurs between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. only. If you are on a trail and realize it is after 4 p.m., return to the station immediately by the most direct route, even if this means leaving a task incomplete. Do not run, but do not delay. 7. The Western Trail junction, marked as point W7 on the topographic map, requires inspection every Monday and Thursday. Approach from the northern path only. If you see anyone at the junction when you arrive, turn around without speaking and return to the station. Report the sighting at your next radio check-in using the phrase "junction occupied." Do not elaborate. 8. Animals behave strangely at altitude and in isolated areas. If you see a deer moving backward, a bear standing perfectly still for more than 5 minutes, or any bird that does not flee when you approach within 10 feet, do not follow it and do not attempt to photograph it. Return to the station and note the observation in the logbook with the exact time and location. 9. The fire tower, visible 3 miles east, is not part of your jurisdiction. Do not approach it. If you see lights in the tower at night, close all curtains and do not look toward it again until morning. 10. Hikers occasionally become lost and find the station. You may provide water, directions, and use of the radio for emergency calls only. Do not offer shelter overnight. If someone asks to stay, explain that regulations prohibit it and direct them to the nearest campsite, 1.3 miles south on the main trail. If they insist or refuse to leave after you have asked 3 times, excuse yourself to the bathroom and use the emergency radio frequency channel 14 to request immediate assistance. 11. During your supply runs on Thursdays, you will leave the station at noon and return by 5 p.m. Lock all doors and windows before departing. If you return and find any door or window open, do not enter. Radio dispatch immediately from the truck or the trailhead payphone. 12. Water from the well is safe after filtration. Do not drink water from any stream, creek, or spring, even if it appears clear. Do not fill containers from outdoor sources for any purpose except washing equipment. 13. If you hear radio transmissions on Channel 6 outside of scheduled check-in times, listen but do not respond. If the transmission uses your call sign and station number correctly, you may respond. If it uses your personal name, do not respond. If it uses yesterday's authentication codes, do not respond. 14. Temperature and precipitation readings are logged at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. If you record the same reading to the 10th of a degree or 100th of an inch 3 times in a row, stop taking readings for 24 hours. Resume the following day at the regular schedule. I read through the list 3 times. Some made practical sense. scheduled radio times, generator maintenance, trail curfews in wilderness areas. Others seemed arbitrary at best, superstitious at worst. The one about hearing my name called felt like something from a campfire story. I opened the desk's bottom drawer and found the previous ranger's logbook. His name had been Marcus Webb. His handwriting was small and precise, each entry time-stamped and initialed. The first dozen pages were routine. Weather observations, trail maintenance notes, a twisted ankle on the blue trail, a resupply delay due to road conditions. Then about 6 weeks into his tenure, the tone shifted. October 3rd, 6:42 p.m. Heard someone call Marcus from the tree line west of the station. Approximately 30 yards out. Did not recognize the voice. Followed protocol 15 minutes in bathroom. No further sounds when I emerged. MW October 7th, 8:13 p.m. Radio transmission on Channel 6 at 7:51 p.m. Outside scheduled check-in. Used correct call sign and station number, but voice was wrong. Tone was flat, words were correct, but spacing was off. Did not respond. Transmission repeated twice, then stopped. MW October 9th, 2:18 a.m. Woke to sound of footsteps on porch. Counted 47 distinct steps in a circular pattern. Steps stopped for approximately 3 minutes, then resumed. Second circuit counted 47 steps again. Curtains remained closed per protocol 3. Footsteps ceased at 2:34 a.m. MW, the entries continued in this vein for another month, growing more detailed and more disturbing. Webb had been methodical about following the protocols. He noted every anomaly, every time he applied a rule, every outcome. But sometime in early November, a new urgency entered his writing. November 6th, 5:07 p.m. Returned from Thursday supply run. Found front door unlocked. Certain I locked it. Radio dispatch per protocol 11. Hutchins arrived with Marquez at 8:34 p.m. They entered first. Everything appeared normal, no signs of entry. Hutchins replaced the lock anyway. Advised me to maintain strict protocol compliance. MW November 11th, 3:22 a.m. Heard my own voice on the radio. Channel 6. It was giving the 7 a.m. check-in report, but it was 3:22 in the morning. The voice used correct codes, correct phrasing. I did not respond. Transmission lasted 45 seconds, then silence. Logged the incident. Will report at actual 7 a.m. check-in. MW November 14th, 9:16 p.m. Something tried the door handle. Not wind, not an animal. The handle turned slowly, counterclockwise, then clockwise, then released. This happened 6 times over the course of 12 minutes. I remained at the desk. The door held, lock held. MW. The final entry was dated November 18th. I can't do this anymore. I've followed every protocol. I've been exact. I've been careful. But it's learning. It knows my schedule now, knows my voice, knows when I sleep. Last night I heard it giving the evening check-in report while I was still formulating what I'd say. It was word perfect. Today at the W7 junction I saw myself standing there. Same uniform, same posture, same gear. I turned around per protocol 7 and returned to the station. Hutchins is coming up tomorrow. I'm done. That was it. No signature on that last entry, no initials. Just those 4 sentences and then blank pages. I closed the logbook and looked around the station. The shadows were lengthening. It was almost 6 p.m., time for the first weather reading. I went outside to the instrument cluster mounted on the east side of the building. A small weather station with digital readouts for temperature, humidity, barometric pressure, and a rain gauge. 72.4 degrees, 46% humidity. 30.12 inches of pressure, 0.0 inches precipitation. I logged the readings in the current book, a fresh ledger that Hutchins must have left. My handwriting looked too large, too casual compared to Webb's precise notations. The forest was quiet, No bird calls, no rustling in the underbrush, just wind moving through the canopy. I went back inside and locked the door behind me, checking it twice. At 7:55 p.m., I positioned myself at the radio. Channel 6, volume at mid-level, microphone ready. I'd written out my check-in message on a notepad to make sure I didn't fumble it. At exactly 8 p.m., I pressed the transmit button. Dispatch, this is Station 7, Ranger Keeper, evening check-in, all clear, over. Static then. Station 7, this is dispatch, reading you clear, confirm arrival and orientation complete, over. Confirmed orientation complete, over. Understood, Station 7, next check-in 0700, dispatch out. I set down the microphone and realized I'd been holding my breath. The first 3 days passed quietly. I fell into the routine. Morning check-in at 7, weather readings at 6 and 6, generator runs Tuesday and Friday, trail inspections within the daylight window. I saw no hikers, no wildlife beyond squirrels and a pair of hawks circling high over the ridge. The woods were entering their dormant phase, the sounds dampening as autumn deepened. On the fourth night, I heard my name. It was 1:37 a.m. I'd been asleep, but the voice cut through my dreams with the clarity of something spoken directly into my ear. Sarah. I sat up in bed. The voice had come from outside, from the direction of the porch. Sarah. A woman's voice, familiar, but I couldn't place it. Not my mother, not my sister, but someone I knew, someone I should recognize. I started to get up, then remembered Protocol 4. If you hear your name called from outside the station after dark, do not respond and do not go to the window. I stayed in bed. My heart was hammering. Sarah, 3 times. That was the third call. I got up and went to the bathroom, closed the door, and checked my watch. 1:38 a.m., 15 minutes. I sat on the closed toilet lid and counted the seconds, listening to my own breathing in the small space. No more calls came. At 1:53 a.m., I opened the bathroom door and returned to bed. The station was silent except for the usual settling sounds of old wood and stone. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. At the 7 a.m. check-in, I reported the incident using the same sparse language Webb had used. Heard my name called 3 times. 01:37 hours. Applied Protocol 4, no further contact. Dispatch's response was brief. Understood, Station 7, maintain protocols, dispatch out. That was it. No questions, no concern, no advice, just acknowledgement that it had happened and an instruction to keep following the rules. I spent the day maintaining a section of the Eastern Trail, clearing deadfall and remarking a faded blaze. The work was physical and mindless, which helped. By the time I returned to the station at 3:45 p.m., I'd almost convinced myself that the voice had been a dream, or an owl, or some acoustic trick of wind through the trees. Then I saw the equipment shed. The door was hanging open about 6 inches. The padlock dangled from the hasp, still locked, but the hasp itself had been unscrewed from the wood. 3 screws lay on the ground. I stopped 15 feet away and checked my watch. 3:47 p.m., Protocol 5. If you find the shed unlocked when you know you locked it, do not enter. Lock it again from the outside and note the time. Check the lock again in exactly 1 hour. But it wasn't just unlocked. The hasp had been deliberately removed. That wasn't in the protocol. I stood there for a full minute trying to decide if this qualified as the same situation or something different. I chose to treat it as the same. The shed was open and I knew it shouldn't be. I approached carefully, pulled the door fully closed without looking inside, and repositioned the hasp. The screws were Phillips head, and I had a multi-tool on my belt. It took me 3 minutes to get all 3 screws back in and tightened. I snapped the padlock shut and noted the time. 3:52 p.m. Back in the station, I wrote the incident in the logbook with as much detail as I could remember. Then I sat at the desk and watched the clock until 4:52 p.m. When I walked back outside, the shed was still locked. The padlock hadn't moved. The hasp was secure. I pulled on it anyway, testing. Solid. At my 8 p.m. check-in, I reported the shed incident. Dispatch logged it and told me to maintain protocols. That phrase again, maintain protocols. It was becoming clear that this was the only guidance I'd get. The following Monday, I hiked to the W7 junction for the required inspection. The day was clear and cold, the first real bite of winter in the air. I approached from the northern path as specified, moving at an easy pace, stopping periodically to check trail markers and clear minor obstructions. The junction sat in a small clearing where 3 trails converged, north, west, and south. A weathered sign, post marked the directions and distances. According to the map, I was 2.1 miles from the station. I emerged from the tree line and stopped. Someone was standing at the junction, a man in ranger uniform, his back to me, studying the signpost. He was about my height, maybe a bit taller, wearing the same green jacket and brown pants I was wearing. A radio was clipped to his belt. Protocol 7. If you see anyone at the junction when you arrive, turn around without speaking and return to the station. I turned around and walked back the way I'd come. I didn't run, but I didn't dawdle. Every 50 yards or so I glanced back. No one was following. No one called out. The forest was silent. At the station, I logged the sighting. Monday, 10:47 a.m. W7 junction occupied. Applied Protocol 7, returned to station without incident. At the noon radio check, no. There was no noon radio check. Check-ins were at 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. only. I'd almost made an error, almost broken protocol by trying to report outside the scheduled window. I forced myself to wait until the evening check-in. When I made the call, I used the prescribed phrase, "Dispatch, Station 7 reports junction occupied at W7 10:47 hours today. Over." There was a longer pause than usual before dispatch responded. "Understood, Station 7. Did you approach? Over." "Negative. Applied Protocol 7. Over." "Good copy. Maintain protocols. Dispatch out." That night at 2:14 a.m., I heard footsteps on the porch. I was awake, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling and thinking about the figure at the junction. The footsteps were distinct. Boot heels on wood planking, slow and deliberate. They started at the south corner of the porch and moved in a clockwise circuit. I counted. 47 steps, then silence. I waited, counting seconds. At 180 seconds, 3 minutes, the footsteps started again. Another clockwise circuit, 47 steps, silence. It happened 6 times total. Same count every time, same 3-minute intervals. The last circuit ended at 2:46 a.m., and then the night was quiet again. I didn't get up. I didn't look. The curtains were closed per Protocol 3. I just lay there counting steps and seconds until dawn. At the Thursday supply run, I drove the 15 miles of logging road to the main route, then another 32 miles to the small town of Keller's Gap. The supply truck met me at the Ranger Service Depot on the south edge of town. Propane cylinders, dried goods, batteries, fresh water in 5-gallon jugs, toilet paper, soap. I signed for everything and loaded the truck bed. Hutchins was there, supervising. "How's it going?" he asked. "Fine. Following protocols." "Any problems?" I thought about the voice calling my name, the shed, the figure at the junction, the footsteps. "Anomalies. I'm logging them." He nodded. "That's good. Webb logged everything too. It helps." "Helps what?" "Documentation. Pattern. Tracking. Knowing what to expect." He handed me a sealed envelope. "Amendments to the protocols. Review them tonight and implement starting tomorrow." I took the envelope. It was heavier than I expected. "Anything else?" Hutchins asked. "The figure I saw at W7, who was it?" "Doesn't matter. You followed protocol, that's what matters." He turned to go, then paused. "You're doing fine, Keeper." "Better than fine. Most rangers break protocol in the first week. You haven't. Keep it up. I drove back to the station, arriving at 4:38 p.m. All doors and windows were locked exactly as I'd left them. I unloaded the supplies, stocked the kitchen and storage area, then sat down at the desk with the envelope. Inside were 3 pages of additional protocols, numbered 15 through 24, typed on Park Service letterhead. Protocol amendments, effective immediately 15. If you hear radio traffic that mimics your voice, do not acknowledge it verbally or in writing. Continue normal operations. If dispatch asks you about transmissions you did not make, respond with, Station 7 confirms only scheduled check-ins at 0700 and 2000 hours. Do not elaborate. 16. Between 2:15 a.m. and 2:30 a.m., do not look at reflective surfaces. Cover the bathroom mirror with the towel provided. Do not use the blank computer screen as a mirror. Do not look at standing water in containers. If you must move through the station during this window, do so by flashlight or with the propane lights at minimum. 17. Every Wednesday at noon, conduct a complete inventory of the equipment shed. Count all items and compare to the master list posted inside the shed door. If any item count exceeds the master list number, remove the excess items and place them outside the shed at the northwest corner. Do not use these items. Leave them outside until the following Wednesday, then dispose of them in the burn barrel. 18. If you encounter a hiker on the trail who asks you for the time, give it to them. If they ask you for the time a second time within the same conversation, do not answer. End the conversation politely and continue on your way. If they follow you for more than 100 yards, stop, turn around and say, "The station is closed to visitors today." Then continue to your destination without looking back. 19. The diesel backup generator is for emergencies only. If the solar panels fail and you must use the backup, run it for a maximum of 2 hours. If power is needed beyond 2 hours, ration usage, 1 hour on, 1 hour off cycling is needed. Do not run the backup generator between sunset and sunrise. 20. Trail marker orange paint is stored in the shed. When repainting markers, use exactly 3 strokes per blaze, vertical, vertical, vertical. Do not use horizontal strokes. Do not paint circles or symbols. If you find a marker painted differently, note the location and report it at your next check-in. Do not repaint that marker. 21. If you see lights in the fire tower during daylight hours, close the curtains and stay inside for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, open the curtains and proceed normally. Do not reference the tower lights at check-in unless dispatch specifically asks. 22. Hikers may leave items on the porch, notes, trash, lost gear. Remove these items daily at 8 a.m. If an item is not present at 8 a.m., but appears later the same day, do not touch it. If the same item appears 3 days in a row, bag it and include it in your next supply run to be handed to Hutchins. 23. During trail inspections, if you encounter a section where all sound stops, no wind, no birds, no insects, mark your current position. Continue 50 yards forward, then mark again. If sound does not resume, turn around and return to the station. Report the location as dead zone, with GPS coordinates at your next check-in. 24. If you miss a scheduled check-in for any reason, attempt contact on Channel 6 every 30 minutes until you reach dispatch. If you cannot reach dispatch within 6 hours, switch to Channel 14 and transmit, "Station 7 emergency, Ranger requests immediate extraction." Repeat every hour until contact is made. I read through the amendments twice. Some clarified the original protocols, others introduced new procedures that seemed to anticipate scenarios I hadn't encountered yet. The one about reflective surfaces between 2:15 and 2:30 a.m. matched the time window when the footsteps stopped. I laminated the amendment pages and posted them next to the original protocol sheet. 24 rules now. 24 specific procedures to keep me safe from something that the protocols never directly named or explained. That night, I covered the bathroom mirror with a towel at 2:10 a.m. and stayed out of the bathroom until 2:45 a.m., sitting at the desk with a book I wasn't really reading. No footsteps on the porch that night, no voices. Just silence and the occasional pop of the propane heater cycling on and off. The next morning's weather reading showed 72.4 degrees. The afternoon reading showed 72.4 degrees. I logged both and thought nothing of it until the following morning when the reading was 72.4 again. Protocol 14. If you record the same reading 3 times in a row, stop taking readings for 24 hours. I noted the halt in my logbook and set a reminder to resume readings the following evening at 6 p.m. The week continued. I hiked the eastern loop on Tuesday, finding nothing unusual. The generator ran on schedule between 10 and 11 a.m. without incident. On Wednesday at noon, I inventoried the equipment shed. The master list was posted inside the door on laminated paper. 3 shovels, 2 pickaxes, 1 chainsaw, 4 jerry cans, 2 50-foot coils of rope, 1 20-pound bag of rock salt, 12 road flares, 2 first aid kits, 1 fire shelter, assorted hand tools, 1 folding stretcher, 5 trail marker paint cans, 2 brushes. I counted carefully. Everything matched until I got to the road flares. There were 13 in the box instead of 12. Protocol 17. If any item count exceeds the master list number, remove the excess items and place them outside the shed at the northwest corner. I took out 1 flare and carried it to the northwest corner of the shed, setting it on the ground. It looked identical to the others, red tube, white cap, proper markings. But there were 13 when there should have been 12, so this one didn't belong. I locked the shed and returned to the station. Through the window, I could see the single flare lying in the grass about 40 yards away. It stayed there all week, untouched. The following Wednesday, I picked it up wearing work gloves and dropped it in the burn barrel with some paper trash, then lit the whole thing. The flare ignited with the rest of the trash, burning hot and bright for several minutes. October slid into November. The temperature dropped. The first snow fell on November 4th, just a dusting that melted by noon, but it signaled the transition into winter operations. Hutchins brought chains for the truck tires during my supply run. "Road'll be impassable by mid-December," he said. "We'll switch to helicopter drops after that, weather permitting. You'll get a 2-week supply instead of weekly to account for delays. And if there's an emergency? Channel 14. We'll come. Might take 12 hours in bad weather, but we'll come." He handed me another envelope. More amendments, weather-specific protocols. I'd been at the station for 6 weeks. I'd heard my name called 8 more times, always in sets of 3, always after midnight. I'd seen the figure at the W7 junction on 3 more Mondays and twice on Thursdays. Each time I'd turned around and walked away without speaking. The footsteps on the porch had become a regular occurrence, always 47 steps, always in clockwise circuits, always between 2 and 3 a.m. I'd stopped being frightened of them and started being annoyed by the interruption to my sleep. The new amendments brought the total to 32 protocols. The winter editions covered procedures for heavy snow, ice on the solar panels, emergency heating if propane ran low, and trail closures. But 3 of the new protocols were different. 29. If snow accumulates more than 6 inches overnight, do not leave the station until you have visually confirmed that your footprints from the previous day are still visible. If they are not visible, wait 4 hours and check again. If they remain not visible after the second check, radio dispatch with the phrase, "Station 7 reports ground condition anomaly." 30. During snowfall, tracks may appear in the snow around the station. Do not follow any tracks that lead away from the station. Do not investigate tracks that circle the station more than twice. If you see tracks approaching the station that stop at the door but do not return, note the time and direction in your log. 31. If you hear a knock on the door during a snowstorm, count to 30 before responding. If the knock repeats during your count, do not respond at all. If the knock does not repeat, you may open the door. If someone is there, ask them, "What's your trail name?" If they cannot answer or answer with your name, close the door immediately and lock it. Do not open it again until the storm has passed. I read through these carefully. The protocols were getting more specific, more situational. It felt like they were building towards something, preparing me for a particular kind of event. On November 11th, the event came. I woke at 1:42 a.m. to the sound of my voice on the radio. "Dispatch, this is Station 7, Ranger Keeper, evening check-in, all clear, over." I sat up in bed. The radio was in the main room. The voice was coming through the speaker clearly, and it was definitely my voice. Same pitch, same cadence, same slight upturn at the end of "over." I got up and walked to the doorway, listening. Static then. "Station 7, this is dispatch, reading you clear, weather check, over." My voice again. "Current conditions, 34 degrees, clear skies, wind northwest at 5 miles per hour, over." "Good copy, Station 7, next check-in 0700, dispatch out." Silence. It was 1:45 a.m. The evening check-in happened at 8 p.m. Something was transmitting using my voice, my call sign, my check-in pattern, and dispatch was responding to it. Protocol 15. If you hear radio traffic that mimics your voice, do not acknowledge it verbally or in writing. Continue normal operations. I went back to bed, but I didn't sleep. At 7 a.m., I got up and did my actual morning check-in. Dispatch responded normally, giving no indication that they'd received a false check-in 6 hours earlier. I didn't mention it. This continued for 5 nights. Every night between 1:30 and 2 a.m., my voice would give an evening check-in report. The weather details were always plausible, the codes always correct, the phrasing perfect. On the 3rd night, it gave a report about a minor trail washout on the southern loop. And when I hiked that trail the next day, there was indeed a washout right where the false transmission had described it. It wasn't just mimicking me, it was accurately reporting conditions. On November 17th, I was returning from an afternoon trail inspection when I heard it. "Sarah, help me!" My sister's voice coming from the direction of the equipment shed. Panicked, desperate. I stopped walking. My sister lived in Delaware. There was no way she was here. "Sarah, please, I'm hurt." No protocol covered this specifically, but Protocol 4 said not to respond to my name being called after dark. It was 3:40 p.m., still daylight. Did the protocol apply? I decided it did. The spirit of Protocol 4 was about not responding to familiar voices calling me. Time of day was just one parameter. I continued to the station, unlocked the door, and went inside without looking toward the shed. My sister's voice called out 3 more times, growing fainter, then stopped. I logged the incident and waited for my evening check-in to report it. Dispatch Station 7. Heard family member's voice at 15:40 hours, Western approach. Applied interpretation of Protocol 4, over. Understood, Station 7, correct application, maintain protocols, dispatch out. The next morning, Hutchins came up unscheduled. I heard the truck at 8:30 a.m. and met him on the porch. "You did good yesterday," he said, climbing out. "Webb had the same thing happen. Voice of his mother calling from the tree line. He went to look, found nothing, but after that it got worse for him." "What do you mean, worse?" "More frequent. More convincing. It started using people he'd seen recently, hikers he'd helped, dispatch operators, me. Toward the end, he said it was using his own voice and he'd catch himself almost responding to himself." Hutchins pulled out another envelope. "Emergency protocols. You probably won't need them until winter sets in hard, but have them ready." The emergency protocols were numbered 33 through 37, labeled for use during extended isolation conditions, which meant snowstorms that closed the road for more than 3 days. 33. During road closure lasting more than 72 hours, ration propane to 2 hours of heating per day. 1 hour at 6 a.m., 1 hour at 6 p.m. Wear all available layers. Use sleeping bag rated to 0 degrees. Frostbite risk is acceptable. Hypothermia is not. 34. If isolated for more than 5 days, water ration is 1 gallon per day for all purposes. Melt snow only during scheduled generator runs. Do not melt snow using propane heat. 35. During extended isolation, maintain radio check-ins every 12 hours. 0700 and 1900. If you miss a check-in due to equipment failure, repair attempts occur only during daylight hours. Do not work on radio equipment after dark. 36. If you become ill or injured during isolation, assess severity. Minor injuries, treat and log. Moderate injuries requiring evac within 72 hours. Use Channel 14 for priority extraction request. Severe injuries requiring immediate evac. Use emergency beacon red case in equipment shed and shelter in place. Do not attempt self-rescue in winter conditions. 37. If you see yourself outside the station during extended isolation, do not engage. Lock all doors and windows. Close all curtains. Remain inside until the figure leaves. Do not radio dispatch unless the figure attempts entry. If entry is attempted, use Channel 14 and transmit Station 7 Emergency Protocol 37 violation in progress. Repeat until dispatch confirms. I read Protocol 37 3 times. This happened to Webb? I asked. Last thing he reported before requesting extraction. He saw himself trying the door handle. Said it stood there for 2 hours, just trying the handle every few minutes. Patient, like it had all the time in the world. Hutchins started back to the truck. You're past the 50-day mark now. That's when it starts testing harder. The protocols will hold if you follow them exactly. Don't improvise, don't make judgment calls, just follow the rules. He left. I went inside and laminated the emergency protocols, posting them with the others. 37 rules now. 37 specific procedures between me and whatever was out there in the forest. The first heavy snow came on November 23rd, 14 inches overnight with drifts up to 2 feet on the north side of the station. I woke at 6 a.m. and checked the window. My footprints from yesterday's trail walk were completely buried. Protocol 29. If footprints are not visible, wait 4 hours and check again. At 10 a.m. I looked again. Still nothing but smooth snow. I radioed dispatch with the required phrase, Station 7 reports ground condition anomaly. Understood, Station 7. Shelter in place until conditions normalize. Confirm propane and supplies sufficient. Confirmed. Propane sufficient for 6 days at rationed use. Food for 12 days. Water for 8 days. Good copy. Report at next scheduled check-in. I spent the day inside monitoring weather conditions and reading. At 2:30 p.m., I heard the generator start. It was Tuesday, so the generator should run, but only between 10 and 11 a.m. It was now 2:30 p.m., well outside the scheduled window. I went to the window and looked toward the equipment shed. The shed door was closed, but I could hear the generator running clearly. The diesel sound was unmistakable. Protocol 2. If the generator runs outside scheduled times and you didn't start it, note the time and report at next check-in. Do not investigate. But Protocol 19 said the diesel backup was for emergencies only, maximum 2 hours. The solar panels were functioning fine. I didn't need backup power. And if something had started the backup generator, it would run until it was out of fuel or until someone shut it off. I had to make a decision. Shut it off and potentially violate Protocol 2 about investigating, or let it run and potentially violate Protocol 19 about rationing the backup. I chose to let it run. I noted the start time, 2:31 p.m. and monitored the sound. At 4:31 p.m., exactly 2 hours later, the generator shut off. I logged the incident. Generator backup activated outside schedule at 14:31 hours. Ran for exactly 2 hours, shut off at 16:31 hours. Did not investigate. Solar panels functioning normally, backup power was not required. At my evening check-in, I reported it. Dispatch's response was measured. Station 7 understood. Do not approach shed until tomorrow's scheduled inventory. Report any additional anomalies immediately. That night at 2:22 a.m., something knocked on the door. 3 heavy knocks, evenly spaced. Knuckles on wood. I was awake, sitting at the desk and reviewing trail maps. I stopped moving and started counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. At 17, the knocking came again. 3 more knocks, same rhythm. I stopped counting and stayed silent. Protocol 31. If a knock repeats during your count, do not respond at all. The knocking came a 3rd time, then a 4th, then it settled into a pattern. 3 knocks every minute for the next hour. I sat at the desk and listened, counting the sequences. 60 sequences total. 180 individual knocks. At 3:22 a.m., the knocking stopped. I waited another 30 minutes, then went to bed. In the morning, I checked the porch. The snow on the porch boards was undisturbed. No footprints approached the door from any direction. At noon on Wednesday, I conducted the inventory as scheduled. Everything was in order. All counts matched. The generator was cold. No signs it had run recently except for my own log entry. The heavy snow lasted 4 days. The road stayed closed. Hutchins radioed on November 27 to confirm helicopter resupply for the following week if conditions didn't improve. I acknowledged and provided updated supply status. On the 4th night of isolation, I saw myself. It was 9:15 p.m. I was at the desk, updating the logbook, when I felt the sensation of being watched. I looked up at the window. Curtains were closed, per Protocol 3, but the feeling persisted. I went to the bedroom and looked out that window, which faced north. The curtain was supposed to stay closed per Protocol 3, but I lifted the edge slightly and looked out. A figure stood at the tree line about 80 yards away. It wore a ranger uniform. It had my build, my posture. It was too dark and distant to see facial features clearly, but I knew. Protocol 37. If you see yourself outside the station during extended isolation, do not engage. Lock all doors and windows, close all curtains, remain inside until the figure leaves. I dropped the curtain and stepped back. Then I went through the station systematically, checking every lock, closing every curtain. The figure was still there when I'd looked, just standing motionless at the tree line. I returned to the desk and sat down. I did not radio dispatch. Protocol 37 said not to unless entry was attempted. I waited. At 11:43 p.m., I heard the door handle turn, slowly, testing. The lock held. The handle released, then turned again. This continued for 5 minutes. Turn, hold, release, pause, repeat. I went to the radio and switched to channel 14. Dispatch, this is Station 7, emergency, Protocol 37 violation in progress, over. Static, more static. Then, Station 7, this is dispatch, confirm Protocol 37, over. Confirmed. Visual contact at 21:15 hours, entry attempt at 23:43 hours, ongoing, over. Understood, Station 7, weather has grounded helicopter. First available extraction window is 0800 tomorrow pending conditions. Can you shelter in place? Over. I looked at the door. The handle was still turning, methodical and patient. Affirmative. Doors secure, supplies sufficient, over. Good copy, Station 7. Maintain radio silence unless situation deteriorates. Monitor channel 14. Dispatch out. The handle continued turning for another hour. Then it stopped. I listened but heard nothing else. No footsteps, no movement, no sound except wind. At 2:30 a.m., I went to the bedroom window and carefully lifted the curtain edge. The figure was gone. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the desk with a flashlight and the protocols in front of me, reviewing every rule, making sure I understood every contingency. When dawn came at 6:45 a.m., I checked every window. No tracks in the snow, no sign anyone had been there. The helicopter arrived at 9:20 a.m. Not an extraction, just the scheduled resupply delivered early. Hutchins came with it, along with 2 Park Service personnel I didn't recognize. They brought fresh propane, food, batteries, and another sealed envelope. "You did perfect," Hutchins said, handing me the envelope. "Exactly what you should have done." Webb panicked when it happened to him, started trying the emergency beacon, opened the door to check the porch. That was his mistake. "What is it?" I asked. "What's out there?" "It's what the protocols are for. That's all you need to know." He gestured to the envelope. "Final amendments. You're entering the hardest phase. Most Rangers quit after the first Protocol 37 incident. You didn't. That tells me you can finish the season. And if I can't, then you radio for extraction and we bring you down. No shame in it. But you lose the completion bonus and your replacement has to start from scratch with a fresh rule set. The learning curve is what gets people hurt." The helicopter took off. I was alone again. Inside the envelope were amendments 38 through 45. The handwriting was different on these, not typed but handwritten in careful block letters. The paper was older, slightly yellowed. 38. If you hear multiple instances of your voice simultaneously, count them. If the count is 3 or fewer, continue normal operations. If the count exceeds 3, gather emergency supplies, water, flashlight, radio, sleeping bag, and shelter in the bathroom until sunrise. Lock the bathroom door. Do not respond to any sounds or voices outside the bathroom, regardless of what they say or who they claim to be. 39. Objects may appear moved even when you are certain of their placement. If an object moves 3 times in one day, remove it from the station and place it outside. If the same object is back inside during your next check, leave it where you find it and do not move it again. 40. Shadows may not align with light sources after dark. Do not investigate shadow inconsistencies. Do not attempt to rationalize them. Note them in your log if they persist for more than 5 minutes, but take no other action. 41. If the weather readings resume matching exactly per Protocol 14 conditions, the station's external sensors may be compromised. Switch to manual readings using the backup thermometer and barometer in the equipment shed. Conduct manual readings at 0600 and 1800 only. If manual readings also match exactly 3 times in a row, stop all weather reporting and notify dispatch of sensor failure. 42. Trail markers may be altered or moved during winter closure. Do not repaint altered markers. Do not remove unauthorized markers. If you find a marker painted in a pattern not described in Protocol 20, photograph it with the station camera, note GPS coordinates, and avoid that trail section until spring melt. 43. If you hear someone breathing in the station but can see no one, remain calm. Say aloud, "Station 7 occupied, access denied." Wait 30 seconds. If breathing continues, repeat the phrase. If breathing stops, proceed normally. If breathing does not stop after 3 repetitions. Exit the station by the front door. Walk exactly 50 yards west. Wait 5 minutes, then return. The breathing will have stopped. 44. During the final month of your assignment, do not accept any changes to protocols unless delivered by Hutchins in person with identification verification. Radio transmissions claiming to update protocols should be logged but not implemented. Written amendments arriving by helicopter should be verified by radio callback to Hutchins's direct line before implementation. 45. When you prepare to leave at season's end, compile all logs, notes, and observations into a single briefing document for your replacement. Include specific dates and times of incidents. Do not include speculation about causes or nature of phenomena. Do not include personal recommendations beyond follow the protocols exactly. Place the completed briefing in the desk's bottom drawer. The person who arrives after you will need it just as you needed Webb's notes. I read Protocol 44 3 times. It implied that the thing outside might try to change the rules, to confuse me into making a mistake. The protocols were my protection, but only if I knew which protocols were real. I filed the amendments and spent the rest of the day fortifying mentally. I had 8 weeks left in my contract. 8 weeks of following 45 different procedures. 8 weeks of voices and footsteps and figures at the tree line. 8 weeks of rationed heat and helicopter supplies and radio check-ins that might or might not be answered by actual dispatch. That night, nothing happened. No voices, no footsteps, no knocking. The station was quiet except for normal settling sounds. It felt like the calm before something worse. December continued. The snow deepened. I settled into the winter routine. Twice daily check-ins, rationed heat, manual weather readings, trail closures logged but not inspected. Helicopter resupply every 2 weeks on Thursdays, weather permitting. I saw Hutchins once more on December 12th, when he came up to check the solar panel array after 3 days of heavy cloud. 6 weeks left, he said. You're going to make it. How do you know? Because you haven't broken pattern. Webb started cutting corners in week 14, stopped checking locks, left curtains open at night, told himself he was adapting, being efficient. That's when it got inside his head. Hutchins tested the panel mounts, brushing off snow. The protocols aren't arbitrary. Every single one exists because something happened. Someone broke a rule and we added a rule to prevent it next time. You're protected as long as you stay inside the framework. What happens after the season ends? Does it just stop? It's always here. The forest doesn't change, but it seems to pay special attention to the person in the station. When you leave, it'll test the next person. That's why the briefing is important. The more we document, the better the protocols get. He left. I went back inside and added another log entry. Detailed notes about the daily routine, the timing of anomalies, the patterns I'd observed in the voice mimicry and physical manifestations. On December 19th at 1:44 a.m., I woke to the sound of breathing. Not my breathing. Someone else's, slow and steady, coming from the direction of the main room. I got up and walked to the doorway, listening. The breathing was near the desk. Deep inhalations, steady exhalations, the rhythm of someone sleeping or resting. But I could see the room clearly in the moonlight filtering through curtain gaps. No one was there. Protocol 43. If you hear someone breathing in the station but can see no one, remain calm. Say aloud, Station 7 occupied, access denied. Station 7 occupied, access denied. The breathing continued. I waited 30 seconds by my watch. Station 7 occupied, access denied. Still breathing. I waited another 30 seconds. Station 7 occupied, access denied. The breathing stopped. I stood in the doorway for another full minute, listening. Nothing, just normal silence. I returned to bed but didn't sleep. In the morning, I found my coffee mug moved from the kitchen counter to the desk. I'd left it on the counter before bed, I was certain of that. I'd washed it, dried it, and set it on the counter next to the sink. Protocol 39. Objects may appear moved even when you are certain of their placement. If an object moves 3 times in one day, remove it from the station. I noted the movement in the log. Coffee mug moved overnight, counter to desk. First instance. The mug didn't move again that day. But on December 21st, I found it on the desk again in the morning, then on the bathroom sink at noon, 3 times. I took the mug outside and placed it on the porch, 20 feet from the door. The next morning it was back inside on the desk. Protocol 39. If the same object is back inside during your next check, leave it where you find it and do not move it again. I left the mug on the desk. It stayed there for the rest of my tenure. Christmas passed without acknowledgement. The protocols didn't recognize holidays. On December 26th, a blizzard shut down the access road for 6 days. Helicopter resupply was delayed until January 2nd. I rationed carefully, propane 2 hours daily, water 1 gallon daily, food stretched to 14 days. The temperature inside the station dropped to 48 degrees. I wore every layer I had and worked at the desk wrapped in my sleeping bag. On December 29th, during the worst of the storm, I heard my voice on the radio. Not just one instance, 3 instances overlapping, all speaking at once, all giving slightly different check-in reports, all using correct call signs and codes, all sounding exactly like me. Protocol 38. If the count exceeds 3, gather emergency supplies and shelter in the bathroom until sunrise. I counted 3 distinct voices initially, then a 4th joined in. 4 instances of my voice, all talking over each other on Channel 6, creating a chaotic chorus of ranger reports and weather data. I grabbed my water bottle, flashlight, radio, and sleeping bag and went to the bathroom. I locked the door and sat on the floor with my back against the tub. The voices continued for hours. Through the bathroom door, I could hear them clearly, transmitted through the station's radio speaker. They weren't just giving check-ins anymore. They were having conversations, one voice asking questions, another answering, a third offering corrections, a 4th providing commentary. All in my voice, all perfectly articulated. At 4:37 a.m., a new voice joined. Hutchins. I recognized his cadence, his phrasing. He was talking to my voices, coordinating something, giving instructions. Station 7, confirm your position, over. My voice. Station 7 is at position November Alpha 7-3. Over. Hutchins. Understood. Maintain holding pattern until weather clears, over. My voice. Confirmed. Will maintain, over. It sounded like a legitimate exchange. But Hutchins wouldn't be on the radio at 4:37 a.m. during a blizzard. And I hadn't transmitted anything. I was locked in the bathroom with the radio in my lap, powered on but not transmitting. At 6:12 a.m. the voices stopped. Abrupt silence, mid-sentence. I waited another 30 minutes, then unlocked the bathroom door and emerged. The station was undisturbed. The radio showed no record of transmissions. The log function I'd been maintaining showed only my scheduled check-ins, nothing from the night. I added a detailed entry about the incident, noting the time, number of voices, and the approximate duration. At 7 a.m., I did my scheduled check-in. Dispatch responded normally. I asked if they'd received any transmissions overnight. Negative, Station 7. Your last check-in was 2000 hours yesterday. Over. Understood. Over. Everything all right up there? Over. Affirmative. Managing conditions, over. Good copy. Next check-in 1900 due to storm monitoring. Dispatch out. I sat at the desk for a long time after that, staring at the radio. The voices had been real. I'd heard them clearly. But they'd left no trace, no evidence except my own log entry and the memory of spending 6 hours locked in a bathroom listening to multiple versions of myself have conversations that never happened. January brought clear, brutally cold weather. The temperature dropped to 8 degrees at night. I burned through propane faster than planned, but helicopter resupply came on schedule and Hutchins authorized extra fuel. 4 weeks left. On January 9th, I hiked to the W7 junction for the first time since November. The trail was snow-packed but passable. I approached from the north as always, moving carefully, testing footing. The junction was empty, no figure waiting. Just the weathered signpost, and 3 converging trails marked by snow. But one of the trail markers had been changed. The standard 3 vertical strokes were still there, but someone had added a circle around them. The paint was fresh, bright orange against the weathered wood. Protocol 42. If you find a marker painted in a pattern not described in Protocol 20, photograph it, note GPS coordinates, and avoid that trail section until spring melt. I took 3 photographs with the station camera, noted the GPS coordinates from my handheld unit, and returned to the station without proceeding further. At my evening check-in, I reported the altered marker. Dispatch logged it and confirmed I should avoid that trail for the remainder of the season. 2 weeks later, on January 23rd, I conducted the final Wednesday inventory of the equipment shed. Everything counted correctly. Nothing excess, nothing missing. As I locked the shed, I realized this was my last scheduled inventory. My contract ended on February 7th, 16 days away. I'd made it. 89 days in the station, following 45 protocols, surviving every test. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Relief. That night, Protocol 37 activated again. I saw myself at the tree line at 7:43 p.m. Same position as before, 80 yards out, motionless. I closed all curtains and locked all doors. At 8:52 p.m., the door handle turned. But this time was different. After 20 minutes of testing the handle, I heard footsteps on the porch, not the usual 47-step circuits. These were pacing, 6 steps, turn, 6 steps back, turn, repeat. The pattern continued for 3 hours. At 11:50 p.m., the footsteps stopped. A single knock on the door, then silence. I waited 30 minutes, then carefully lifted the corner of the front window curtain. The porch was empty. The tree line was empty. Whatever had been there was gone. I logged the incident and went to bed at 1 a.m., exhausted. The final 2 weeks passed in a strange calm. No voices, no footsteps, no moved objects. The radio transmissions stayed normal, just my scheduled check-ins answered promptly by dispatch. The weather was cold but clear. Helicopter resupply came on time. Hutchins visited on February 4th to coordinate my departure. "You did it," he said, standing on the porch. "Full season, perfect protocol compliance. That's rare. What happens now? You pack up, I bring you down on the 7th, you collect your bonus and move on. Your replacement arrives February 15th. 8-day gap for maintenance and system checks." He handed me a blank notebook. "Write your briefing. Everything you experienced, everything you learned, times, dates, specific observations. The next person needs to know what to expect." I spent 3 days writing the briefing. I documented every anomaly, every protocol activation, every decision point where I'd had to interpret the rules. I included the dates when specific phenomena started or stopped. I noted patterns in the timing, how voices typically came between 1:30 and 3 a.m., how the figure at the junction always appeared on Mondays and Thursdays, how the breathing incident had been a one-time event. I didn't speculate. I didn't try to explain. I just recorded what happened and how I responded. On February 6th, my last night in the station, I did a final inventory of supplies. Everything was stocked for the next person. Propane sufficient for 3 weeks. Food for 4 weeks. Water filtration system cleaned and tested. Generator serviced and fueled. Radio equipment checked and logged. All protocols posted clearly on the wall. At 8 p.m., I did my final check-in. "Dispatch, this is Station 7, Ranger Keeper, evening check-in, all clear. Final check-in before contract completion, over. Station 7, this is dispatch. Reading you clear. Extraction confirmed 0900 tomorrow. You've done outstanding work up there, Keeper, over. Thank you, dispatch, over. Safe travels, dispatch, out." I sat at the desk for a long time after that, looking around the station. It had been my home for 98 days. I'd learned every sound it made, every crack in the walls, every loose board in the floor. I'd survived things I still didn't fully understand by following rules I didn't completely believe in at first. At 2:23 a.m., I heard footsteps on the porch. One last time. 47 steps clockwise, then silence. I didn't get up. I just listened and counted. When the footsteps stopped, I said quietly to the empty room, "Thank you for following the protocols, too." No response. Just whined through the pines and the faint creak of the building settling in the cold. Hutchins arrived at 9 a.m. sharp. I'd packed everything I came with, cleaned the station, and placed my completed briefing in the bottom drawer of the desk. As I locked the front door for the last time, I looked back at the building. It looked smaller than I remembered from the day I arrived. Just a stone and timber structure in a clearing, solar panels on the roof, a small shed nearby. Ordinary, normal. But I knew what it held. The rules on the wall, the logs in the desk, the memory of footsteps that circled but never entered. The protocols had kept me safe, and they'd keep the next person safe too, as long as they followed them exactly. We drove down the logging road in silence. After 20 minutes, Hutchins spoke. "You going to stay with Park Service?" "I don't know. Maybe. If you do, there are other stations. Some are easier than 7, some are harder." "Harder how?" "More protocols, shorter grace periods, less margin for error." He glanced at me. "But you've got the discipline now. You understand why the rules matter. That's what we need." We reached the main road and turned south toward Keller's Gap. I watched the forest slide past the window, thick pines and bare hardwoods, snow-covered slopes stretching for miles. Somewhere in there, 3 miles east of the station, was the fire tower I'd never approached. Somewhere in there were trails marked with unauthorized symbols. Somewhere in there were things that mimicked voices and tested locks and walked in patterns that never quite crossed the threshold into the world I understood. But they stayed out there. The protocols made sure of that. At the ranger depot, I collected my final paycheck and completion bonus. Hutchins shook my hand. "If you decide you want another season, let me know. We've got openings in the northern sector come spring." "I'll think about it." I drove away from Keller's Gap that afternoon, heading east toward the interstate. In my rearview mirror, the Appalachians rose against the winter sky, ridge after ridge fading into blue distance. I thought about the next person who'd sit at that desk and read my briefing. They'd arrive in 8 days, drive up that same logging road, unlock that same door. They'd find the protocols posted on the wall and my notes in the drawer. And when they heard their name called for the first time, when they saw themselves standing at the tree line, when the footsteps started their patient circles, they'd know what to do. They'd follow the protocols exactly. Because that's what keeps you safe when you work as a ranger in the Appalachians, where something in the forest learns your voice and your face and your patterns. Where the rules are specific for a reason. Where 45 protocols stand between you and the thing that circles the station at 2:23 a.m., counting steps that always total 47. I made it through my season. I followed every rule, and now someone else would too. The protocols would hold. They always do, as long as you don't improvise, don't make judgment calls, and don't try to understand what you're protecting yourself from. You just follow the rules. Exactly.